Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library. So grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today we are doing another how-to video. This is actually a how-to question I get asked a lot because I do read a lot. And so I have a lot of people who ask me, how do you read that quickly? Or how do you read a book quickly? And I want to give a caveat before I do this, that there are a lot of books where I don't read them quickly. This year has actually been turned out to be a relatively slow reading year, even though I set myself a goal of reading 100 books by the end of the year. I'm now only a quarter of the way through and we're halfway through the year. And that is mostly because a lot of the books I have read have just been slow. So I don't want to say that I read quickly all the time. There are books that I struggle with, even though I have been reading for a long time. But there are 5 useful ways that I use quite often that help me read faster. A lot of these you can find online, so they're not my own. I don't want to claim all of them, but I will tell you what I do with those 5 things, how I use them in my own reading time to see if that helps you read more quickly. So without further ado, let's get on to the video. So the first tip I have to help you read faster is to minimize your subvocalization. Vocab lesson, if you would like one. Subvocalization basically means you're in a monologue. The things you are saying to yourself, but not out loud. So the talking that happens in your head, the narrative that's happening internally and not externally. That's what subvocalization means. It can be a big distraction, actually. When people read, that there's so much going on in your head. A lot of that happens with people who have insomnia, myself included, where there's just so much talking going on in my head or noise going on in my head that it's hard for me to concentrate on anything else. Subvocalization is a completely normal thing, but to help you read more quickly, we have to minimize the subvocalization. And there are a lot of ways you can do that. And a lot of it basically has to do with distraction. Things that keep your subconscious busy while you are focusing on something else. Chewing gum is a huge one. Something is working while your brain is also working, so it's diverting attention to doing something else with your body. I do chew gum a lot. I don't necessarily like to chew gum while I read just because of the noise being that close to my ears, but that's my own personal preference, but that's sort of a standard one that a lot of people do. Another one is having background music. Background music is actually incredibly beneficial for helping people to read more quickly. I really like Sounds by Nature, I think is what it's called, that channel. I'll link them down below, but they have a lot of coffee shop jazz where they mix rain sounds and a noisy cafe with just beautiful aesthetic pictures, and they spend a lot of time doing that for like 8 hours. The videos are like 8 hours long, and so it's really nice to have that playing in the background where it sort of gives an aesthetic to your reading experience. Even if it's not anything about what you're reading, it's still nice background noise. That's what I like to use for mine. Speaking of a noisy cafe, actually one of my favorite places to read is by myself in a crowded space. I did that a lot in college. I would go to like the Learning Commons in my college, which had a lot of activity and noises and voices, and I would like to sit there by myself and read because having external noise made me focus more and activity around me. So it was almost like willing myself not to get distracted. But I know we can't necessarily go to a lot of crowded places given COVID. We're getting there. Still not necessarily the best thing. But I love going to an actual coffee shop and hearing the noise and the chatter and just burrowing down and reading a book. And I find that incredibly beneficial to my reading atmosphere. Another is to actually sit in a rocking chair or a glider chair or something where you can push with your foot and get your body moving while you're reading. It's also good for circulation, but it's one other thing of keeping your body moving, focusing your muscles on doing something while your brain is working. If you get motion sick, this probably isn't the best for you, but I really enjoy doing it. I like reading in rocking chairs. I think it's really satisfying. And then the last one that helps minimize subvocalization is actually airflow, having something moving around you where it's not so still and quiet. I like reading with a fan on. I like going outside if there's a good breeze. Having something moving around you where your senses are active, I think is a really great one. It's very hot right now in the summer, so midday probably isn't the best, but in the evening or early morning, I really like being outside and reading then. But yeah, stimulating airflow, again, gets your senses active while your brain is working. So those are my tips for helping with subvocalization, turning off the noise in your brain so that you can focus on reading. Tip number 2 for reading faster is to practice your skim reading. This isn't something that I use very often anymore, but I spent a lot of time doing this in college. Basically what it consists of is widening your peripherals, using your peripherals when you read, not focusing on one single line, but widening your vision so that you're taking in a few lines at a time. It takes practice. It's not something that happens instantaneously, and it is better for academic reading, like if you're having to get through a textbook, and you know, the actual revising can come later when you're studying for a test. But if you're getting through a lot of material, like reading multiple novels for an English class, doing that kind of thing of learning how to skim read using your peripherals is incredibly important for reading faster. I don't do it for free reading, like I said, but it's great for academic reading. Another great way to help you read faster is to annotate as you go. There are a few tools that I use for annotating. The first, and probably the one that I enjoy the most, is using what's called a commonplace book. Again, a lot of people attribute that to academic reading, but actually it's an incredibly great way to help your memory retention with what you read, helps you write better book reviews, and it does help you read faster. It is a book. I actually have like a hardcover notebook, but you can use a legal pad, a binder, whatever you want, where I keep track of the things I like about what I am reading or the things I don't like about what I'm reading. So I'm actively involved in the material. A few things that I keep track of, because it's important to decide what you want to annotate before you start. I keep track of quotations that I really like. I keep track of vocabulary words that I've never heard of or I'm not sure of the definition. I keep track of the good things I like in terms of content and format and theme, and I keep track of the bad things relating to those same things, or things that I wish would have been in there, or my own opinions about characters, that kind of thing, reactions to situations. Those are the things I keep track of. I don't like tabbing, mostly because I like actually physically writing in my books. That's a habit I picked up in college that I have never gotten over. I don't do that in library books, obviously, but any book that I own, I do that in. So sometimes the secondhand books I get have a little bit of my writing in there, but everything goes into the commonplace book. So I like using highlighters, I like using colored pens. So that's my own preference, but annotating, like I said, is a great way to help you read faster because it keeps you engaged in what you're doing. And the fourth tip to help you read faster has to do with timing. When do you read? How long do you read? I like to use the Pomodoro method, which is fairly well known, where I will set a timer for 25 minutes and I will work for those 25 minutes, and then I will take a break for 5 minutes, and then I will switch tasks, even if I'm not done with the original task, and work for another 25, break for 5, and so on and so forth until I'm done with the day or done with those projects. Normally I do those on Wednesdays. Today is a Wednesday, and Wednesdays are my catch-all days, and it's actually when I usually get the most reading done when I'm not filming, but I like to read for 25-minute increments on those days, and just put it in as part of my work rotation, because then, you know, it is a thing of like, yep, it's on my to-do list, so I'm actually setting aside time during my day to check off this thing. I will usually only do that for books where I'm having a hard time getting through them. I'm currently doing that with one of them because I'm struggling with it a lot. You'll hear more about that in my What I Read in June video, but I usually only do that with books where I'm struggling with content or it's not something I'm interested in, because like I said, I don't DNF, so if I open your book, I'm going to make a commitment to finish it. But that's usually what I use that for, because most of the time I really like to sit for an hour or two and let myself get absorbed in a book. I find I read more quickly actually when I give myself an hour or two, because I can finally get into the groove of calming my brain and setting up my space for reading quickly, whether it's music or in a crowded place, and giving myself that time to get page after page done. But if I'm having trouble with a book, I will use the Pomodoro method. So those are my 2 time management things, and it really does actually impact your reading if you are reading only in a certain time of day. So I actually really like reading early in the morning when my brain is clear. Those are my time management methods for helping you read faster. And the last tip for helping you read faster is to read more books. It kind of seems like an oxymoron because, you know, well, how can I read more books if I can't read quickly? It does work. Reading more helps you get into that groove of this is a pattern I have. This is a habit I have formed of reading this many books. So setting goals for yourself. I do that a lot. My goal this year is 100 books. I'm going to have to knuckle down and get 3/4 of it done in the second half of the year, but it'll happen. Although I do have, I'm staring at them, some pretty chunky ones coming later in the year. But those are my goals. And I have challenges that I want myself to complete. So I have things set up for me to meet certain reading standards of reading more books more quickly. Another thing I do is that I read more than one book at once and I cycle between them. I currently have 3 that are open. One I'm particularly having to slog through, like I mentioned before, so I might have to put the other 2 aside before I finish that one. But I like having multiple books going so that I'm not bored by content all the time. If it's a good book that I'm really enjoying, I will read that one all the way through. But I like cycling between so I can spice it up, but also having a variety of genre. I like doing that where I'm reading different genres at once, and I'm not, getting tired or burnt out on fantasy or thrillers or mysteries or whatever you like to read. And I have a variety of things that I can pick up at any given time. So those are my 5 tips for helping you read faster. I think the subvocalization one is probably the one that I have benefited the most from, of learning what works for me in terms of quieting what's in here so I can focus on reading, because I love reading and I don't want to be distracted from it. But if you appreciated any of these tips, or you think you have other things that you want to add to these tips, or one in particular that has worked for you, let me know in the comments. I would love to know your methods for helping yourself read faster, because I would love to adopt more, because I have some major catch up to do this year. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out, and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly means the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.